Hello there, beautiful souls, and welcome to this episode of Holistic Healing with Lorrie. Very happy to be here with you. And today we're going to be talking about total body burden. This is sometimes called your stress barrel. And this is actually an excerpt from my HEAL program, both the starter program and the advanced program. We have this concept because it's so important to understand, and you'll get why in just a bit here. This one is so important to help you gain an understanding of how you got sick in the first place, how you developed symptoms in the first place, and also how to heal and what that healing process, what that recovery healing journey involves. So, you may have heard of this concept of a stress bucket or a stress barrel, right? And this is just a basic illustration of that. Now, they're missing a couple of things here, but we're going to talk about those as well. So, when we think about how the body becomes sick to begin with, this idea of the stress barrel is super helpful because your body has a tremendous capacity, actually, a well body, a balanced internally body has a tremendous capacity for dealing with stressors, right? So when we're talking about stress, we're talking about toxins, right? Environmental chemical exposures. We're talking about endotoxins and exotoxins. So environmental stuff, and I'm going to include EMFs in here. Those are exotoxins. They are outside of your body and you absorb them or you eat them or you breathe them in. All these different ways that we can and do get toxins into the body. We can also inherit toxins from our mother. In fact, we certainly do, for sure. The firstborn typically gets a bigger load than the subsequent siblings, though it depends on what the mother has been exposed to and the timeline of that, right? Now, also, of course, your lifestyle and what you put in to your body with what you eat, also your mental and emotional stressors and your belief systems and your nervous system, right? So I'm going to put all of those together in there. And this is what we use EFT for, EFT tapping. We also have some devices that are really amazing at lowering those mental and emotional stressors. The main thing that this particular stress barrel is not showing is pathogens. We also inherit pathogens. If you have a pulse, then you have parasites, you have other pathogens within you. It just depends on whether it depends on the overall stress load in your barrel, right? If you're having symptoms, then the toxins are overflowing. The total body burden, stress on the body, the toxins, the emotional, mental stuff, then if you're having these symptoms, if you're chronically ill, then your barrel is overflowing. Your barrel has become a bucket. And that ends up happening too. So before we talk about that, though, let's talk about these pathogens as well. Every single person on this earth has a pathogen, more than one pathogen, many pathogens. Again, whether we're talking about parasites or bacteria like Lyme or mold, mycotoxins, all these different things. It just depends on whether the body is balanced and whether the stress barrel or bucket is big enough to hold what those pathogens are doing within the body, or if the pathogens have been latent for a while and then something happens to fill up that stress bucket, stress barrel, to the point where it's overflowing. And so they take advantage of that, those pathogens, and they wake up and start doing their thing. Now, the thing about pathogens and this stress barrel is that they create toxins themselves. Some of them are there actually to do a job of hoovering up the toxins that are actually in the body. That's a whole other discussion for us to have at some point. But they also are they're wreaking havoc as well because they are producing their own toxins. A lot of times it's neurotoxins. There are tons of other toxins that affect the body in lots of different ways. And then they're also taking nutrients. So that is causing your stress barrel to become smaller and smaller. The other thing that causes the stress barrel to become smaller, and all these things feed into each other, right? But the other thing that causes it to become smaller and smaller is that the liver and the gallbladder, the kidneys, they start to become compromised because they're not able to work efficiently or effectively because, bless them, they are working so hard to try to get the toxins out of the body, but the toxic overload becomes too much. So then they start to get compromised and they're not able to do their jobs efficiently and effectively. So then that toxic load just keeps building on itself, right? So when we talk about this total body burden, this is what we're talking about there. So you might be dealing with decades and decades, possibly since you were born, most probably since you were born, of toxin buildup. And depending on, your health history and what you may have been exposed to, the barrel gets smaller and smaller until it becomes a bucket. And then you have more and more toxins being created in the body by those pathogens and that you are coming in contact with. So this is why the body starts to develop all these sensitivities. And these just list a couple of the many possible symptoms that you might be experiencing, right? Because it's affecting our brain function, it's affecting our mitochondria, it's affecting skin breakouts happen for a number of different reasons. Heightened sensitivities, like we were talking about, body pain with things like fibromyalgia and things like that, low mood, insomnia, and all the inflammation, all that inflammation, lack of motivation. And I would definitely add in there, and we were talking about this morning in the Heal Advanced program in the Australia, New Zealand cohort, about how difficult it is to interact socially with people. You just don't have that inclination to anymore for a lot of people, or it's super hard. You really want to, but it just drains you. And that is another really intelligent thing, actually, that the body does, because when you're not feeling safe and when you're super low on energy, when the body is super low on energy, that is a real tax to interact with people. So, yeah, I'll just share this with you because it was such a beautiful shift. So, this particular student, who is absolutely wonderful, all the Heal students are absolutely wonderful. Anyway, she has been struggling for a while now. She was living in high levels of mold, and so none of the protocols were going to work for her until she got out of that environment. So she has been able to get out of that environment, and huge kudos to her because they had company after company come in. I think they had like 6 different mold remediation companies come in and check the house and everything and say, you're fine. And we give this house a clean bill of health. But she just knew in her heart that there was mold somewhere there. And so she finally got her dad to poke some or cut out small holes in the drywall right next to the bathroom that was in her room, right off of her room. And sure enough, within that, they were able to see rampant mold in there. And then it also turned out that they had it in their HVAC system. So when you have these hunches and these things that say, no, this is, I know that this is right. I know that there's something there. Please follow them. So anyway, now that she's out of the mold, she is seeing these very small progressions. And it's been for, I think, a couple of months, maybe 2 months that she's been out of the mold now. But one of the things that she shared with us this morning is that first of all, she said, I'm feeling frustrated because I feel like I didn't really make any progress health-wise this past week. And then the win that she shared with us, because we always focus on wins, is that she had the impulse to hug her mother for the first time in years. She said, I just have not wanted anybody to touch me. I just have not been in a space where that felt good to me, all that stuff. And I was floored by that, first of all, because oh my gosh, what a beautiful gesture for her to be able to do again and to be inspired to do again, to have that impulse, to have that desire to hug her mother. But the thing that just set off just a celebration for me was that is a huge indication of progress. Because again, going back to that concept, that idea that, or that truth, that when the body's stress barrel, when the body's total body burden of toxins, of stressors is so high and overflowing, then you're not going to want to give somebody a hug. It's hard even for some people. I remember this happened for me. It's hard to look other people in the eye or it's hard to even talk to people sometimes. So I was like, okay, so first of all, your energy, the like the mitochondria in your body are starting to do different things and work in a more effective way because you have to have more energy in order to have that social interaction, to want to have that social interaction. That's number one, which also means that the toxic load is starting to decrease. Number two is that there's a sense of more safety there. And she said that's absolutely from the EFT tapping. And I've been able to watch that with her and with so many other students and with myself, with my own journey there. So I hope that all of that makes sense. So what we do to heal this is to, first of all, start to very gently remove those toxins, right? At a rate that is right for the body. And before we do that, before we even look at doing that, we have to make sure that the drainage pathways are working, that you're pooping every day. Are you able to sweat? And you know what? Some people aren't able to sweat in the beginning. Preferably, are you sleeping? Now, I know that is a huge issue for a lot of you out there. And if you're not in the beginning, that's okay. We work on that too. But sleep is so important because that's when you get your glymphatic drainage happening. That's your brain detoxing, right? And your brain is actually the last thing to detox. Your brain uses up a tremendous amount of energy. There are so many mitochondria in your brain. I can't remember the numbers right now, but it's a ridiculous amount as even as compared to the rest of the body. So we want to make sure that's online. Now, the other thing that we do is we start to remove, again, very gently, some of those pathogens. And we do it in a certain order so that you're not over toxing, overburdening the body. And we have other tools to help that detox aspect go more smoothly and the cleansing of the pathogens to go more smoothly. And then the other thing that we do is you definitely want to be improving your liver and gallbladder function. That is the first place to go to start to make your bucket, your stress bucket, into a stress barrel again, right? So we always want to make sure that we have more toxins going out than coming in. We want to expand and make that stress barrel bigger so that it's able to handle more. And we also stop putting as much in, right? The thing about our world today is that we are going to be exposed to toxins. We're going to be either ingesting them or bringing them in through our skin or inhaling them, period. But we can certainly lessen that load by doing different things. Uh, Air filtration, being careful about what you eat, being careful about what you put on your skin and the clothes that you wear, right? There are microplastics in so many clothes. Yeah, so just paying attention to all these things. The good news is that even if you have a stress thimble right now, right? Even if you are reactive to everything, you can start to get rid of some of those toxins. You can start to expand your stress thimble into a stress bucket and eventually into a stress barrel. And you can eventually get to the place where you are not so reactive to things and where you can live a normal life. Now, what I will say is that for those of us who have experienced this heavy toxic load and for whom, how shall I phrase this, who have also experienced things like mycotoxin, mold inhabit, sounds like it's a ghost or something, and these hidden infections, right? Lyme, parasites, things like that, you are going to have to be more careful moving forward. So it's not like you get to 100% and then you can go back to stressing yourself out all the time and doing 80-hour work weeks and eating crap and all that stuff. You do still need to pay attention, but you don't have to be so tight about it. And you're enjoying your life more. And you feel like yourself again. That's one of the biggest, that's one of the most difficult things, right? I think to me, with these illnesses and with these symptoms, the emotional roller coaster that they create for us, and that is a chemical thing that is happening, right? Some of these pathogens that we're talking about, they actually eat your serotonin, they actually eat your GABA, and these are your dopamine, and these are your feel good chemicals in your body and creating neurotoxins and all those other things, in addition to just feeling physically crappy, right? And in addition to the circumstantial thing of all of it where you're not able to do what you want to do in your life, the frustration around getting and all that stuff. I think I got a little sidetracked there, but oh yeah, that is huge, to be able to feel like yourself either again or to feel like the person that you've always known deep down inside that you actually are. And that's a beautiful thing, in addition to being able to do the physical things that you want to do, being able to think clearly, being able to find the words that you're looking for, all that good stuff, and feeling safe in your body and in the world. That's huge too. So I hope that is helpful in understanding how a body gets sick and how we start to remove those layers and to reduce that stress barrel and to expand it and make the body's ability to handle these stressors more. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you think that one of your friends, one of your family members, or even an acquaintance will benefit from learning this information, from being exposed to it, please share it with them. And please subscribe. We love seeing you subscribing. So thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next episode.